Alright folks, buckle up and grab your snow boots or maybe your wetsuit because today we're diving into one of the wildest what-if battles in the animal kingdom. Picture this, the icy realm of the Arctic colliding with the mysterious depths of the open sea. It's not just a battle of teeth and claws. It's a full-blown clash of ecosystems, evolution, and raw primal power. On one side, lumbering through the frostbitten tundra like a furry tank, we've got the polar bear. This isn't just any bear. We're talking about the largest land carnivore on the planet. Weighing in at up to 1,600 pounds, with paws the size of dinner plates and a bite that can snap a seal's spine in a heartbeat, the polar bear is a walking fortress. Think of it as nature's snowbound juggernaut. These guys are so tough, they hunt seals by waiting at breathing holes in the ice for hours. That's patience, that's precision, that's terrifying. And then from the deep blue beyond, slicing through the ocean like a torpedo with teeth, comes the great white shark. Now this is the definition of a stealth killer. Fast, silent, and armed with rows of serrated teeth that can rip through bone like it's sushi. Weighing over 2,000 pounds and clocking speeds up to 25 miles per hour, the great white is basically a submarine with jaws. I've personally watched great whites breach the surface in South Africa, launching into the air while catching seals mid-flight. It's like a missile with fins, so here's the million-dollar question. What happens when snow meets surf? When fur meets fin, when the king of the Arctic locks eyes with the emperor of the sea? Let's be real, this is a matchup no nature documentary dares to show. Why? Because they live in two totally different worlds. One rules the ice, the other owns the ocean. But imagine, just for a second, that they met on some mythical battleground where icebergs float into shark-infested waters. Who wins? Would the polar bear's brute strength and strategic mind overpower the shark's speed and ambush tactics? Or would the shark strike first, tearing through blubber before the bear could land a single paw? As someone who has spent years observing apex predators in the wild, I'll tell you this, the answer isn't so simple. It's not just about size or strength, it's about habitat, adaptability, and instinct. The polar bear has endurance and cunning. The great white has agility and explosive power. It's brains versus reflexes, patience versus precision. So stick around, because we're about to unpack this epic showdown in full. One thing's for sure, this isn't just a fight. It's a legendary face-off between two of Earth's most iconic killers. Who would you put your money on? The snow beast or the sea phantom? Let the wild battle begin. The polar bear, the Arctic powerhouse in a fur coat. Imagine walking through a blizzard and spotting a creature the size of a small car casually striding across the ice. That's not a snow monster. That's a fully grown male polar bear, weighing anywhere from 880 to 1,500 pounds. Some bruisers even tip the scale near 2,200 pounds. Yeah, that's heavier than a Harley-Davidson Road King. Standing on all fours, they reach about 5 feet tall, but if one rears up on its hind legs, you're staring at a towering 10-foot iceberg with teeth. Polar bears are not just big, they're engineered for survival. That thick blubber layer, it's not just winter wear. It keeps them warm in sub-zero temperatures and buoyant when swimming in near-freezing waters. Their fur isn't actually white, it's translucent and reflects light, which helps with camouflage. And those massive paws, they act like snowshoes on land and paddles in the water. Talk about multi-purpose gear. Now let's talk weapons. Razor-sharp claws, bone-crushing jaws, and a bite force that can snap a seal's spine. These guys are stealth hunters. I've watched them on Arctic expeditions stalk seals for hours, completely silent, only to strike in an instant. They're not just strong, they're smart and tactical. But here's a twist. While they can swim for miles, they're not ocean warriors. They prefer coastal waters, drifting ice floes, and shallow edges where they can hunt and rest. You won't find them doing laps in the open sea. The great white shark, the silent missile of the deep. Slide into the cold blue and what do you find? The great white shark, the torpedo-shaped terror of the oceans. Measuring up to 20 feet long and weighing as much as 5,000 pounds, this fish is all power, all muscle, and all bite. If the polar bear is a tank, then the great white is a fighter jet. Let's talk about those teeth. Triangular, serrated, and razor-sharp. Each tooth is built like a saw blade and they grow in rows, constantly replenishing. That means if it loses a tooth mid-hunt, no big deal. A new one pops in like a vending machine of destruction. and its jaw strength. One bite can cut through bone, flesh, and even small boats. That's no exaggeration. Ever wonder how it finds its prey? These sharks have a sense of smell so powerful, they can detect a single drop of blood from over 1,000 feet away. It's like having a radar locked onto anything that bleeds. Combine that with bursts of speed reaching 25 miles per hour and you've got a predator that strikes before you even realize you're being hunted. I've personally seen a great white breach the water in full force, launching out of the ocean like a torpedo in pursuit of a seal. It's like watching a submarine leap into the sky. That's not just hunting, that's aerial assault. So let's compare. Weight class, surprisingly close. Polar bears average around 1,000 pounds while the great white can sometimes double that. Length, the shark has the edge here with a sleek, 20-foot frame versus the bear's 10-foot stretch when standing. Mobility, bear dominates on land and near ice. Shark is the uncontested king of the open sea. Weapons, bear has brute strength and claws built for grappling. Shark is all about precision strikes and bite mechanics, my take as a wildlife specialist. This matchup is like comparing a grizzly linebacker to a lightning-fast assassin. The polar bear is built to endure, to stalk, to outlast. The shark is designed to strike fast, vanish, and hit again from below. It's a battle of two worlds, ice versus ocean, pose versus fins, muscle versus momentum. But here's what keeps me up at night. If they ever met at the edge of an ice shelf, where shallow water meets frozen terrain, what would happen? Would the bear dive in, relying on its swimming ability and raw strength? Or would the shark wait just below the surface, ready to ambush like a ghost? Which one would you bet on when nature throws the ultimate wild card? Stick with me, because this isn't just about size. It's about instincts, environment, and the deadliest adaptations evolution ever cooked up. Now tell me, are you Team Snow Beast or Team Silent Fin, the Ice King and the Ocean Assassin? Let's start with our heavyweight in white, the polar bear. These majestic beasts are the undisputed monarchs of the Arctic Circle. Their royal court spans Greenland, northern Canada, Norway's Svalbard Islands, and the icy reaches of Russia. You won't catch them sunbathing in Florida. These bears thrive where the air bites and the landscape is nothing but frozen silence. Their world is made of sea ice, wind-whipped coastlines, and waters just above freezing. Now here's the cool part literally. Polar bears are marine mammals, technically speaking. They spend a huge chunk of their lives on sea ice, which acts as a floating hunting ground. Think of it as a giant, moving dinner plate. They prowl the edges, wait for the perfect moment, then lunge into the icy water to snag a seal. I once watched a polar bear hold still for over an hour by a seal breathing hole. That kind of patience could teach New York commuters a thing or two. But don't be fooled, they are not deep-sea divers. Their domain is the shallow coastal waters, where they can touch bottom or paddle short distances. They're more comfortable stalking on ice than swimming in the open ocean. Now let's talk about the stealthy swimmer that haunts the dreams of surfers worldwide, the great white shark. Unlike the polar bear, the great white is a global drifter, cruising the cold temperate waters of the world like a submarine with an attitude. You'll find them off the coasts of California, South Africa, Australia, and even parts of New Zealand. If the water is deep and chilly, there's a chance a great white is lurking below. Their perfect habitat, seal hotspots with a drop-off nearby. These sharks love to lurk in the depths just beyond where seals play, then rocket upward in one of the most explosive ambushes in nature. I once saw slow-motion footage of a great white launching out of the water like a missile, jaws wide, and let me tell you it looked like a scene from a blockbuster. No special effects needed. And here's something fascinating. Great whites avoid ice-covered regions. Their cold tolerance is impressive, but they're not built for frozen oceans. They're precision predators of the deep, open water, using stealth and speed rather than brute strength and ice-stalking strategies. So what if they met? Now here's the juicy question. What if, somehow, these two never meet and the wild predators ended up in the same place at the same time? Let's say there's a remote coastline in the far north where the sea hasn't frozen over, but the water is still bone-chilling cold. Seals are plentiful, the ice is thin, the tides are high. It's the kind of eerie, misty scene you'd find on a fantasy movie poster. In this twilight zone between turf and tide, could the polar bear and great white shark actually cross paths? Here's what makes this so thrilling. Polar bears, if they venture just far enough off the coast, might swim into the shark's territory. Great whites, following prey near a shoreline, might inch dangerously close to the bear's turf. For one brief, unpredictable moment, the ruler of the ice and the beast of the blue could lock eyes across a thin veil of seawater. Would the bear dive in for a strike? Would the shark risk coming closer to investigate this unfamiliar figure lumbering at the edge of its world? Would it be an epic clash, or would nature's instincts urge caution? As someone who has tracked both creatures, I'd bet on a lot of curious circling before anything happened. But here's the kicker: neither predator is used to the other. There's no evolutionary playbook for this matchup. That means anything could happen. It's not just about power or territory. It's about instincts in uncharted waters. This isn't just a fun fantasy battle. It's a reminder of how diverse and specialized nature can be. One rules the frozen silence of the Arctic. The other prowls the restless blue of the deep. But somewhere out there, in a place that's cold enough for both and strange enough for a standoff, you've got to wonder who would make the first move. Would the bear's brute strength overcome the shark's aquatic grace? Or would the great white remind the world why it's one of the ocean's most efficient hunters? Now let me ask you, just as I ask my students and fellow wildlife fans, if you had to choose your corner, would you stand with the creature that dominates land and ice, or the one that disappears into the waves like a ghost? The environment may keep them apart, but imagination brings them nose to nose. And in this frozen surf zone, anything could happen. How the polar bear and great white take down their prey. Let's talk strategy, not NFL playbooks or chessboard tactics. I mean raw, primal hunting behavior, the kind that's been honed over millions of years of evolution. When it comes to apex predators, the polar bear and the great white shark are like nature's silent assassins. They don't just attack, they stalk, scheme, and strike with devastating precision. But the way they do it, completely different. Which begs the question, how does a bear built for ice compare to a shark designed like a torpedo? Polar bear, the icy assassin on for legs. Imagine you're a seal, lounging on an ice floe, minding your own business, when suddenly bam, a white blur explodes from the edge of the ice and crushes you with the force of a snowplow. That's a polar bear in action. These guys are solitary hunters. No packs, no team huddles. Just one bear, one target, and a mind sharper than most people give it credit for. Polar bears are strategists, often lying still for hours near a breathing hole in the ice, waiting for a seal to pop up for air. I once watched footage of a bear inching forward, one massive paw at a time, barely making a sound. When the moment was right, it pounced with the force of a wrecking ball. Its claws can hook into thick blubber like butter, and its jaws clamp down deep enough to crush bone. On land and ice, it's the undisputed boss. Nothing stands in its way, but toss this snow monster into deep water. That's where things change. Sure, polar bears are strong swimmers, and they can cover impressive distances, paddling with those huge front paws like oars, but top speed, only about 10 kilometers per hour. That's decent for a land mammal, but if you're thinking of a high-speed chase, think again. In the open ocean, that kind of pace is like bringing a bicycle to a drag race. Great white shark, the stealth missile of the sea, now shift scenes. You're in the water, cruising near the surface, maybe chasing fish or drifting with the current. Everything's calm, too calm. Then out of nowhere a torpedo with teeth rockets up from below, jaws wide, and before you even know what hit you, you're halfway to being lunch. That's the great white shark making its move. These sharks are the stealth fighters of the sea. They rely on speed, power, and surprise. They rarely waste energy chasing prey for long. Instead, they use an ambush strategy called breaching, where they shoot straight up from the deep with such force that they can literally fly out of the water. I've seen great whites launch their entire bodies several feet into the air while hunting seals. It's like watching a 2,000-pound missile with teeth defy gravity. Their bite force, about 1.8 tons. That's enough to snap bones like toothpicks or slice a seal clean in half with one chomp. But here's the genius part. They often bite once and back off, letting the wounded prey bleed out or tire itself out. Then they come back and finish the job. It's patience, precision, and power all rolled into one. Unlike the polar bear, the great white is built for the chase. It can reach speeds of up to 40 kilometers per hour in short bursts. Underwater, that's like being chased by a torpedo with a bad attitude. Who hunts smarter, who hunts harder? So here's a thought experiment. If you dropped a polar bear and a great white shark into the same cold coastal area, who would outhunt whom? On the ice or rocky shorelines, the bear would dominate. It has the stealth, the strength, and the surprise to own that terrain. But in deeper water, the shark has the home field advantage. It's faster, sneakier, and one well-timed bite could spell disaster for anything that drifts too far from shore. What I love about both of these animals is how their hunting styles reflect the environments they've mastered. The polar bear is the ultimate ice stalker, using patience and brute force. The great white is the ocean ambusher, relying on precision, power, and a killer instinct that few predators can match. What does all this tell us? That power doesn't come in just one flavor. You can be slow and silent and still strike like thunder. Or you can be fast and explosive and never give your prey a chance to react. So ask yourself, in your own battles, are you a patient predator like the polar bear, waiting for the perfect moment? Or are you a relentless hunter like the great white, striking hard and disappearing into the deep? One thing's for sure, whether you prefer the ice or the open sea, nature never runs out of ways to amaze us. And in this cold-blooded contest between fang and claw, the real winner is strategy. What if they fought, polar bear versus great white shark, who comes out on top? Now we're diving into the big question, the one you've probably been dying to ask since the start. What would happen if these two apex predators actually faced off in a one-on-one battle? Who would win in a fight between a polar bear, king of the Arctic ice, and a great white shark, the undisputed terror of the sea? To answer that, we need to talk turf, because when it comes to these two powerhouses, location changes everything. It's like asking who would win in a basketball game between LeBron James and Michael Phelps. Depends if they're on a court or in a pool, right? Scenario 1. On land or ice, advantage polar bear. Picture this. A great white shark somehow ends up stranded on an icy shoreline. Maybe the tide rolled out or the bear dragged it partway onto the ice during a coastal encounter. Either way, it's game over for the shark. Out of water, it's helpless. It can't move, can't breathe, and is basically a giant fish-flavored snack waiting to be served. Meanwhile, the polar bear is in its element. With those huge paws, sharp claws, and sheer muscle mass, it can pounce, slash, and bite with terrifying precision. And unlike the shark, it can breathe just fine. On land or ice, the bear is not just dominant, it's untouchable. To put it in sports terms, this is a home game for the bear, and the shark never got off the bus. Scenario 2. Deep ocean more than 10 feet deep, shark takes the lead. But flip the scene, and the tables turn faster than you can say Jaws. Drop them into deep water, and the great white becomes a torpedo with teeth. It doesn't just swim. It glides with muscle-packed grace and then strikes like a bolt of underwater lightning. At over 20 miles per hour in short bursts, the shark can circle behind or rocket up from below, delivering a bone-crunching bite before the bear even sees it coming. And remember, the shark's bite is no joke. It hits with the force of nearly 4,000 pounds per square inch. As much as I admire polar bears, they aren't built for underwater combat. They swim well, sure, but their top speed is more like a paddle boat than a speedboat. In the open ocean, the shark is the ghost in the water, and the bear just another big animal out of its comfort zone. Scenario 3. The shallow water showdown, a true tug of war. Now here's where it gets fun. Imagine a narrow coastal zone, cold, shallow waters about 3 to 6 feet deep. It's not quite land, not quite ocean. This is the gray zone, and it's the most fascinating battleground. Here, both animals are half in, half out of their element. The bear has solid footing and enough water to move, while the shark can still use the tide and depth to maneuver and strike. The polar bear might try to drag the shark onto the shore where it has the advantage, while the shark will try to pull the bear into deeper waters where it can dominate. It's like watching two heavyweight wrestlers each trying to pull the match to their favorite position on the mat. This is where things get unpredictable. One wrong step, one slip, one perfectly timed move, and it could be all over. This is nature's version of a chess match with claws and teeth. So who wins? Honestly, there's no single answer. It all comes down to environment and timing. On land, it's bear country. In deep water, the shark rules. In between, it's anybody's game. What I find amazing is how these animals are so perfectly adapted to their worlds that the mere change in terrain completely shifts the power dynamic. It's a brilliant reminder that strength isn't one size fits all. Whether you dominate the tundra or the tides, it's about knowing your ground, playing to your strengths, and not letting the opponent pull you out of your zone. So let me ask you this: in your own life battles, are you fighting where you're strongest, or letting others drag you into unfamiliar territory? Because even the fiercest predator can lose if the arena isn't theirs to rule. And in the fantasy fight of polar bear versus great white shark, the only sure winner is the environment. The face-off in Fast Facts: polar bear versus great white shark. Alright folks, let's break it down. No charts, no spreadsheets. Just a no-holds-barred, claws versus jaws comparison that hits you right in the adrenaline. Who brings what to the wildest imaginary cage match on Earth? First, ask yourself this: what happens when the heavyweight champ of the Arctic ice meets the torpedo-toothed terror of the deep blue sea? Let's start with the battlegrounds. The polar bear rules the frozen north like a fluffy tank on pause. Think Canada, Greenland, and anywhere ice crunches underfoot. It's built for land and surface water, cruising across ice sheets like it owns the place. But throw it into the deep ocean and it starts to struggle. Sure, it can swim, but not with the grace or speed it has on solid ground. The great white shark, on the other hand, is a stealth missile with fins. Its world is the ocean, cold, deep, and full of prey. Drop it on land and it's toast, but underwater, especially below 10 feet, it becomes a silent assassin. Now let's talk speed. The polar bear can hit 40 kilometers per hour on land. That's faster than most people sprint. In the water, it moves at a solid 10 kilometers per hour, not too shabby for something that weighs as much as a grand piano. The great white shark, it cruises through the water at up to 50 kilometers per hour. That's like getting hit by a speeding motorcycle that's made entirely of muscle and teeth. Speaking of teeth, let's talk bite force. The polar bear's bite is strong, clocking in around 1,200 psi. That's more than enough to snap bone or crush a seal's skull. But the great white, try 4,000 psi. That's like getting your arm caught in a hydraulic press with razors for jaws. One chomp and it's game over. Weaponry: the bear brings massive claws, raw power, and thick fur over a blubber-rich body that laughs at the cold. It's built like a linebacker who trains with logs. The shark counters with serrated, triangular teeth that slice through flesh like butter and a mouthful of replacements ready to reload at any time. And don't forget their strategies. The polar bear is a patient stalker. It waits, it watches, and then it strikes like a furry ninja with paws the size of dinner plates. It hunts seals by punching through ice or sneaking up at breathing holes. It's all about ambush, power, and precision. The great white shark, it's the king of surprise. It lurks below, hidden in the gloom, and then rockets upward in a brutal ambush, clamping down with a fatal bite before fading into the depths. It's hit, bite, and disappear. No second chances, no do-overs, just one perfect strike. So, which one is more dangerous? The one that punches through ice to pull a seal from the sea, or the one that launches from the depths like a missile with teeth? It all depends on where the battle happens and who lands the first blow. Here's what I think. Both of these predators are perfect examples of evolution at its finest. One rules the frozen frontier, the other dominates the cold, dark waters of the world's oceans. Neither would ever want to switch places, but if they ever did meet in a chilly coastal face-off, that would be one for the history books. So, who are you betting on, the bear with the paws or the shark with the saws? Final verdict: who takes the crown, the ice king or the ocean assassin? Alright, animal lovers, here's the cold, hard truth about this frosty face-off. If the battlefield is solid ground or shallow, icy waters, the polar bear gets the upper paw. With its massive strength, agile reflexes, and clever hunting tactics, it moves across ice like a ghost and strikes like a heavyweight boxer. Ever seen a bear drag a 300-pound seal out of a breathing hole without breaking a sweat? Now imagine it facing a shark that's stranded in shallow surf. That's not a fight, that's a feast. But hold on, flip the terrain to deeper waters, and suddenly the tables turn faster than a shark's tail fin. This is the great white shark's playground. With explosive speed, ambush precision, and jaws that can crush through bone like it's celery, this marine monster becomes a blur of danger. Just one well-timed strike from below and even a powerful predator like a polar bear could be in serious trouble before it even sees what hit it. Here's the real takeaway. Victory in nature isn't just about who's bigger or meaner. It's about who plays the home game. In the Arctic shallows, the bear dances circles around the shark. But in the deep ocean, the shark turns into a deadly torpedo of muscle and teeth. Location isn't just a detail, it's the deciding factor. Think of it like this. Would you pit an NFL linebacker against a Navy SEAL in the middle of the ocean? Or ask Michael Phelps to sprint through snow in a parka? That's how dramatic the terrain difference is for these two titans. So who wins? The answer is whoever brings the fight to their turf. Ice versus blood, land versus sea, brainy bruiser versus stealthy slasher. Either one could dominate, but only if the environment is in their favor. Here's my personal take. I admire both of these apex predators. One is the silent hunter of the deep, the other a symbol of raw, Arctic power. But I'd never want to be caught between a hungry polar bear on the shoreline or a circling shark in cold water. Either way, I'm lunch. Now here's the real question. Who do you think would win in the ultimate battle of tooth versus claw? Team polar bear or team great white? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's see who you're putting your baits on. Enjoying the wild showdowns. If you love epic animal battles, jaw-dropping facts, and wild what-if matchups like polar bear versus great white shark, then you're in the right place. Don't just watch, join the pack. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next clash of nature's titans. Got an opinion, a wild theory, a favorite predator? Drop it in the comments below. We love hearing from fellow wildlife warriors like you. Whether you're Team Claw or Team Jaw, your voice matters. Let the battle continue in the comment section.